Well, you thought that the Clash was going to be the last time we'd see these 12 drivers on the track at once alone, but as just mentioned a couple of moments ago on NFRN The Drive, that is not the case. We are here with the NFRN Champions League, which highlights some of the best drivers from the preceding season, and they are going to go head-to-head in a battle of 4 races to see who comes out on top. We're here for round number 1 of the NFRN Champions League. Well, hello again, everybody. Colin Denton here with RVN, and yes, it is happening. We've got this IROC style series coming to the NFRN. It's going to highlight our 12 returning drivers that had just competed in the Clash last month, and now they'll be here and going for another type of title, a very special title that shows and highlights their driving ability. In a 4-race segment, we've got Columbia on the schedule, which is obviously coming up here today, and Riki Raceway will also be a part of it, and we'll have the other 2 races announced at a different time. But we'll focus on today, and this is going to be a perfect opportunity for guys like Noah Cars to continue his momentum off of that Clash win and see what he can carry it over into the Elite Cup Series race later on today. Or it could be time for guys like William Brock and Colin Lindsay to redeem themselves after being involved in an accident later on. So this series will run very similar to what it was in IROC, a different points scale, bonus points for the 3 most lap-led leaders instead of just the top one, and no bonus points just for leading 1 lap. That is something that you don't see in the other series as well. And when it comes down to it, once we get to the end of this race, heading into the next races, the standings will determine the starting order. It will go from the bottom back. So whoever finishes last place today will have the pole in race number 2 at Riki Raceway, and the winner will have to start from the back. So that is an interesting concept that will challenge these drivers and see how they can handle it, and it could create some exciting races to the finish and some exciting races to get up the standings and win that title. But we're here at Columbia International Speedway today, and this is the race we're focusing on, so let's get down to it. And now let's take you through the field for today's NFRN Champions League round number 1 here at Columbia. The starting order selected by the drivers by die-cast vehicles, and they have the numbers of the place that they'll be starting from. And of course, as we move along the season, they'll be starting inversely based on the standings, so that'll make it a very interesting season. But here is where they start today. Make sure to look out for the drivers' new graphics and Twitter handles incorporated throughout all of the series that you'll see today. So let's take you through the field. NASCAR Fan 19, a 2-time winner in the 2016 NFRN Elite Cup Series season, starts on the pole today. And Colin Lindsay, now representing the NFRN Amateur Cup Series, also had a win in the Elite Cup Series last season. In row number 2, we find the number 6 of Johnny Gardner, who was able to win at RTR Motorsports Park, as well as the number 48 of Tyler Markell. In row 3, we have John Arndt, who wasn't able to find a win last season but made it into the chase, and Reese Butcher, who was able to win at Delaware Speedway up in Canada. Row 7 has our first NFRN Elite Cup Series winner, Stephen Willey, who won at Bump Drafting Super Speedway, and Nick Smith was able to win from the pole at Bull Run. William Brock will start out row number 5. He was able to make his way into the 2016 chase of the Elite Cup Series, and our Season 1 champion from the Elite Cup Series, Rampage, starts on the outside of row 5. And in the final spots of this starting grid, Eric Van Arsdale, who now represents the NFRN Amateur Cup Series, and Noah Cars, who was able to win the Clash at Columbia last week. So now we're going to see these 12 drivers deck it out again and see if they can go for a victory. And this will be a very short season, only 4 races that will be spread out across the entire season of the NFRN Series, but definitely have their opportunity to try to earn themselves another championship. Maybe Rampage will be able to add to his collection, or we'll see a new driver who maybe hasn't even won a race yet in the NFRN. But the wait is over, and this is the official start of the NFRN season. The points start getting paid out now. The green flag flies. NASCAR Fan 19, Colin Lindsay, lead them to the start-finish line. Welcome to the 2017 season. Double file they go into turn number 1. NASCAR Fan 19 with a bit of an advantage. over Lindsay on the outside line. And I see a couple of drivers trying to peek and make it 3 wide as they head down the backstretch, showing some aggressive moves early on in this race. They want to be able to lead a couple laps. Now, the point system in this series is a bit different than our standard Elite, Amateur, and Truck series. Here, the top 3 of laps leaders are going to be the ones that get bonus points. The most laps led gets 5 points, the second most laps led gets 3, and the third most gets 2. And we see right away Johnny Gardner was able to lead that lap, push himself to the front, and now he's going to try to maintain that momentum, see if he can grab some extra points regardless of where he's able to finish this race. It's another 30 lapper just like we had in the Clash. So they're used to how this race is going to play out. They are running a bit slower than they have been running in those Elite Cup cars. These guys are only going about 180 to 185 miles per hour. They definitely slowed down in these new types of race cars. It's a bit lower powered, but that could lead to a bit more passing. As you see, Eric Van Arsdale lead the lap, kind of forcing, wow, he's really forcing William Brock up there toward Johnny Gardner, trying to keep him from getting around him. And now we see our Clash winner, Noah Cars, make the big move to the bottom, and he's going for that lead, trying to see if he can jump right off and get some momentum off his Clash win. But he's got 11 guys behind him that are really hungry for another victory. Some of them might be going for their first. And Colin Lindsay, who was the second place starter, has already fallen to the back. NASCAR Fan 19 is actually right in front of him as well, so that front row is already shuffled to the back of the pack. Lindsay finished 12th when he came to the Clash, and he is definitely looking for a better run than he had. Second place driver from last season, now relegated to the Amateur Cup Series, not having the best of starts to the 2017 season. But here in the Champions League, he might have that opportunity to try to regain something. See, William Brock has not gotten a win or a pole. In fact, he was the only driver of the 2016 season who hadn't led a lap. So he is really hungry for something to go his way. Changed numbers this season, 23 instead of the number 40. You can definitely identify these drivers based on their color schemes. It's very similar to what they run in their select series. We see the Season 1 champion of Rampage has made his way to the front. And NASCAR Fan 19 moves himself to the bottom, tries to take the lead away from him. Those two drivers up front are teammates in the Elite Cup Series. In the NFRN Champions League, not necessarily teams counting for points in any way, but they will try to help themselves out as much as they can. The 64 will lead that lap, and Colin Lindsay's trying to make his move and see if he can lead a lap himself. We talked about how those two shuffled back, and now they're back at the front. So definitely a lot of shuffling that goes around on these super speedways, especially when these guys are all mixed in together. We're looking back at that one car. Definitely hasn't lost that competitive spirit. His last win was Zen Joltis, which was only about 4 races back from the end of the 2016 season, so he definitely wants to go back to victory lane very soon. See if he can capitalize on that championship run. And we see 4 wide going through turn number 1. They're keeping it in close quarters. John Arndt, Nick Smith, Noah Cars, they're all right up against each other. And man, Noah Cars is like right on the quarter panel of Nick Smith as they head down the backstretch. Oh, and he's fumbling around there, and they spin. And Nick Smith is up there as well as Stephen Willie. Your Clash winner, Noah Cars, gets involved. And Nick Smith is not going to be able to take the win away here. And Noah Cars is not going to have the best of runs right after that Clash victory. Had some really good moves, but right there it looks like he got a really aggressive run on the 18 of Nick Smith, and looked like he kind of faltered in that middle lane. I think Stephen Willie might have been around there as well. So I think those three cars were really in close quarters to each other, and it just did not work out going into turn number 3, and that's exactly where we saw our lone accident at the Clash. It happened in turn 3 with Colin Lindsay, Stephen Willie, and William Brock. Ooh, and Lindsay made a kind of a late move down to pit lane compared to these other drivers, and a few stayed out as well. I think Lindsay might have gotten a bit of contact during that accident. And there we see, there's the three cars that stayed out. So that's John Arndt, Tyler Markell, and NASCAR Fan 19. They might be trying to play some fuel strategy here. We see the 67 of Van Arsdale. Looks like it's going to be a right tire pit stop for him. I think these guys really value the tires that they're on as they go throughout these races. We've seen this in the Clash as well, and now they're playing the same strategy. They're going for 2 tires only. William Brock's going to win this race off pit road. I think the most tire wear you might see is on the right side compared to the left, and you can see how crunched in the 18 of Nick Smith is right now. So we'll take a look at what happened here. So you can see, coming down the backstretch, this is in the middle of the backstretch, and Cars is just right on the quarter panel of Nick Smith, and he's not given it any room. He doesn't, I think he's misjudging how much room he has on the right, and it's very hard for these spotters to be able to tell him just how close they are. That's kind of a driver's call. And so as he goes into the corner, Stephen Willie kind of squeezes him in there, but yeah, he's just fumbling around, and then they finally all make contact with each other, and Smith hits head on. That crashes, or rather crushes, his front end. And there's the contact with Lindsay that was made with Noah Cars, who then rebounds into the outside wall. So that's where the number 95 got his damage from this accident. Stephen Willie was just riding against the wall there, and Smith probably took the most damage out of anybody in this accident. So we'll ride on board Noah Cars as we head to commercial break, and this will show us just how close it got into turn number 3. We'll be right back with more NFRN Champions League action.
Conseco, NASCAR's official financial services provider.
We're back at Columbia International Speedway for round number 1 of the NFRN Champions League. William Brock will lead the field as he was the first one off pit lane. Those other 3 drivers of Arndt, Markell, and NASCAR Fan 19 did make their pit stops a little later than the rest of the field. We've got a couple drivers out. That is Noah Cars and Stephen Willie. Nick Smith will remain on the track and see what he can do with his bent up race car. The green flag flies, We return to racing action on lap number 12. And Nick Smith dropped like a brick on the rest of this field. It's bad enough when you have damage, but man, his car is already a full turn away from the rest of the field. And it just keeps growing and growing this distance as we ride on board with him. Smith was the winner at Bull Run. He won from the pole, got him into this field along with the rest of the veteran drivers. And he is really struggling here. And he is coming to pit lane. It looks like the crew's going to try to fix whatever is going on with the race car, which obviously it's bent up enough that it's going to affect his performance. But man, that was a really bad run right off the gate. We'll see what he can do there. And Reese Butcher is now challenging Johnny Gardner for the lead. William Brock back to third, and they're 3 wide behind him, 2 lanes deep. Butcher will challenge for that lap lead, and Smith's going to go for left side tires while he tries to get some damage repaired. Makes sense, try to put a bit of fresh tires on and see how that can affect the speed of the race car. Looks like Butcher just barely beat out Gardner in a bit of a drag race to the start-finish line. They're doing a really good job at keeping it clean. That accident was a outlier there, but I'm impressed with how they're running right now. This is the first time we've seen drivers drop out of a race so far in 2017. In the race, in the clash, we didn't see the drivers involved in the accident actually drop out of the race, despite the fact that they were running much slower than a competitive race car would. NASCAR Fan 19 is going to go to the inside line. Reese Butcher's going to shuffle to the outside. The 64 car will lead this lap. We see Colin Lindsay kind of hanging a bit further back from the rest of this pack. I'm not sure if that's an intentional move. I think at this point he's just trying to keep up with the rest of the guys. It's got to be a bit harder for him to keep pace because he had that minor contact on that accident. 4 wide in front of him. Wow. But yeah, you can see he's not being competitive as they go inside. But we're going to head to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back and bring you the conclusion of the first round of the NFRN Champions League.
Following your passion always puts you right where you're supposed to be. NASCAR Home Tracks, where what happens on the track is just part of the story.
Welcome back to NFRN Champions League action. We return with the pack catching up on the slow car of Nick Smith coming into turn number 1. Let's see how this goes out. And it looks like Markel's going to take advantage. NASCAR Fan 19 gets held up. And he's going to get stuck behind the 18 as they go through the corner, and the entire field's going to go by him. He's able to find a way to the outside now. Markel will be able to propel himself to the lead. He basically took it in the same fashion that Noah Carr stole it from him in the Elite Cup Series clash, which means Markel is still winless in the NFRN. Had a very mediocre season in 2016. You know just how much a win would mean to him to get his season going, and I'm sure he would love to see it happen in the big series where they're running so many races and compared to this 4-race competition, but he will take wins anywhere he can get them, even in a reduced field size. Rampage in the number 1 car makes a big cut to the inside, and he's going to contend for that lap lead. Now we're going to keep an eye on pit lane. We don't know how far these guys are going to make it, if they can make it to the end at all. It's certainly possible we might see these guys have to make one more pit stop before they reach the checkered flag. William Brock will contend for the lead once again. And that was a great turn for the 23, and NASCAR Fan 19 follows. So here they come down that backstretch. They're keeping it clean in the back half of this race. The 64 car makes another cut to the inside. Those Ramco Motorsport drivers looking to see if they can get those bonus points on lap sled. It looks like the 64 will get this one, and Colin Lindsay, we continue to watch him as he's still maintaining that pace with the lead group, but he's not being able to be competitive around them. You can definitely tell he is struggling to keep with this group, and he's getting to that point where the draft might leave him and then he'll be stranded. So he is fighting for everything he can with this group while he's got them. Lindsay was the winner at Progressive Speedway last season. But so far in 2017, he's just not finding his footing as he tries to contend for another victory and another championship that he was just short of last year. Reese Butcher now the leader. And Van Arsdale makes the cut to the inside. Markel will join him on the inside, so now the top 2 drivers here, both winless in NFRN competition. And Markel's going to make the big cut to the inside. Among these 2 drivers, they might be the hungriest for that victory. Can't count out William Brock as well. Rampage will try to go to the inside. Markel did lead that lap. Among these drivers up in this front group, a fair amount of them were able to win late in the season. Rampage won at Zandoltis. Gardner at RTR Motorsports Park. NASCAR Fan 19 grabbed 2 victories in the chase. That's 4 out of 10 wins right there. But Gardner is going to have to work his way through and try to see if he can make the playoffs this year. Wasn't able to grab that win in the regular season. Wasn't able to make it in an at-large berth on points. So the 6 car is really fighting for something, while William Brock is going to try to see if he can push himself to another playoff eligibility, which was based on consistency alone. Made his way into the round of 16 on an at-large spot, but just wasn't able to keep it going. And they continue to run in a big pack. They're all shuffling around, looking for positions where they can. And there's no one driver that's keeping that lead consistent. They're all making moves where they can. And now you're just looking at this 8-car group. This looks like the place where you're going to find the contenders for the victory now. Colin Lindsay might just be a bit too far back to contend now, and Smith is already a lap down. In fact, couple laps down based on being on the pit stop. This is what you're looking at if you're in the back of this pack, which is still definitely a viable position for the victory. You continue to see these guys not stopping for fuel yet, so still a very much unknown as to whether this race will be able to run and finish in this pack. I must say, Lindsay is still keeping his ground back there. He looks like he was fading a bit, but he is still right there with the rest of these guys. Laps are winding down. They're 3 wide in the middle. Oh, and Rampage does pull down, and so does Colin Lindsay. We are going to see some pit stops before the end of this one. So that one car comes in early. He's going to get a splash. I don't think we're going to see a tire change out of him. And I tell you what, the one car was right in front of Johnny Gardner. I think that had a big impact on how he is placed now, because he had to let up just a bit to let Rampage merge. So now that 6 car is far behind the pack. He's losing that draft. William Brock is a bit affected too, but he's keeping up with the guys, and I think that the rest of them might come down now, and that indeed we do see. And Rampage does pull off. He'll get out in front of Lindsay. And we are just a couple of laps away from the finish of this one. So these pit stops are going to be crucial. We'll see where Rampage pulls out. We'll see where these guys pull out. They're going to have to get up to speed as well. Van Arsdale's going to have the first pit stall. It's a gas and go for him. And that's going to be the case with everyone else. And John Arndt does pull out in front. And he's going to lead this group. And Rampage is far in the background from this one. When they come around, they're going to have 2 laps to go. And this might be the race right here. John Arndt, Eric Van Arsdale, 2 drivers who have never won an NFRN competition. They might earn their first one here in the NFRN Champions League. Reese Butcher, William Brock, Tyler Markell, that's how they line up behind him. Here comes the number 1 car of Rampage. He might make his way around those back 3, but these 2 guys up front might be the race here. John Arndt was just barely able to make his way into the chase grid, and he was able to maintain consistency, get himself to the championship but he still lacks a victory. Now this could be his chance. But the 67 car is right on his heels. He goes high. He might go for a crossover move. He's still trying to maintain the position up there. And he's just kind of wiggling around. He's getting in Arndt's head. And now he makes the move down to the inside. They're keeping at it side by side. Van Arsdale gets out in front. And we're coming to the white flag. The race is right here. The 67, the 05, 2 guys looking for their first win. Who is it going to be when they cross the line the next time? John Arndt is right on Van Arsdale. Will he make the move here? Yes, he does. Arndt to the bottom, and he's going to go for the lead here. Now, what does Van Arsdale do? Arndt clears the 67, and they come down the backstretch. And the 67 pulls up on him. The draft is coming up behind him, but I think they're too late. Van Arsdale's got to make the move out of this corner. And here he goes. The big move from Van Arsdale. Side by side, out of turn number 4. And it's a drag race to the finish. Arndt stays on his outside, but Van Arsdale is clearing him. And the 67 of Van Arsdale wins his first race in the NFRN. Exciting finish to this one. Eric Van Arsdale, finally a winner in the NFRN. Gets it in round number 1 of the Champions League. He can add that one to his resume. That was a long overdue victory for that 67 car. You can remember back to Brooklands when it looked like he had that one won. Got turned by Dejan Weeks into the wall. He ended up taking that victory. And the 67 car was crumpled back to the back of the field. We take a look at the results from today's race. Van Arsdale edges out John Arndt by 8/100ths of a second. Arndt will continue to look for his first victory, but it is not happening here today at Columbia. Reese Butcher was able to take home a third place finish. William Brock was able to get the most laps led from today's race. He will get that big bonus. He'll push himself in front of Butcher in the standings and actually tie himself with John Arndt. And Rampage also led only 1 lap in today's race, and he finished 5th. The 2 other recipients of laps led bonuses were Johnny Gardner and NASCAR Fan 19. Now, they both led 4 laps, and so did a number of other drivers, but those bonus points will go in ascending order based on who finished in the back of the field compared to the front. So Gardner finishing 9th was able to get the 3-point bonus, and NASCAR Fan 19 and 7th got the 2-point bonus. Nick Smith ended up finishing 2 laps down in his damaged race car, and Noah Carr's Stephen Willie both dropped out of this one, having been involved in that accident earlier on at lap number 7. So here are the standings from today's race, which will determine the starting order for round number 2 at Riki Raceway. They're going to start from back of the standings up front and top of the standings in the back. So Van Arsdale is going to have the 12th starting spot when they head to Riki Raceway, and John Arndt will have the 11th spot, William Brock in the 10th, and you can do the math on your own, but you will see a bit of shuffling based on those point bonuses that were handed out, and we'll see how these drivers are able to contend and see if they are able to make some changes in those standings. We know Riki Raceway is a very fast racetrack, and there's definitely going to be a lot of shuffling, just like we saw today here at Columbia. Can definitely be the same type of race, and it's going to be a war of attrition for these guys trying to look for another victory. But that is going to do it for us here at the inaugural NFRN Champions League race here at Columbia International Speedway. My name is Colin Denton for RVN. Thank you all for tuning in and watching today's broadcast. Make sure to stay tuned. We've got a big day of NFRN Motorsports action with the Truck Series, Amateur Cup Series, and Elite Cup Series races coming up very shortly. We hope to see you all next time when we head to Riki Raceway.